certificate and award for you with a little token of our appreciation. So as I call your name, feel free to come up and grab that, and then I will hand it over to our amazing panel for their discussion. So first, Michael Muto from Duquesne University, Director of Information Security. Michael, are you still with us? There's Michael. Cheers. We have Mark Ellis from Wesco Distribution, Cybersecurity Director. Mark, are you with us? I know, I mean, cyber never sleeps, right? Cyber attacks never stop. So I know a lot of people have to get back to the office at a certain point. So Mark will stay with us in spirit. Eric Weldawson, Dick's Sporting Goods Senior Program Manager. All right, congratulations, Eric. Edward Kennedy from CVS Health, Senior Manager, Software Development Engineer. I see you right up front, my friend. Congratulations. David Morley from Viatris, Senior Security Engineer. Congratulations, David. Chris Scalise from Ambient, IT Security Manager. Chris? All right. Christopher Trieb from Geneva College, Vice President of Information Technology. All right, right behind you, Spencer. Congratulations. Bridget Vyas from BNY, SVP. All right, right there. Congratulations, Bridget. Bill Deller from Schneider Downs, IT Risk Advisory. I do think Bill had to leave early, so with us in spirit once again. Richie Stark from Graham Packaging, Director of Cybersecurity. Richie? All right. Ryan D'Angelo, Brentwood Bank, AVP Networking and Cybersecurity Manager. Thanks for Ryan. Sally Tomeo, ATI, Cybersecurity Specialist. Sally? Oh, right there. Hi. Congratulations, Sally, and thank you for being here. And this brings me to our illustrious panel. First, Naomi Buckwalter, who we saw earlier today from Contrast Security, who was kind enough to come in from Philadelphia, Senior Director of Product Security. Congratulations, my friend, and thank you. Steve Rocco from Matthews International, VP, Chief Information Security Officer, and Head of IT Infrastructure. Cheers, Steve. Right off to my right, does that mean stage left? John O'Rourke, PPG Industries Global IT Director, IC Security, CISO. Jerome Robert, again, who we saw earlier today from Symbiotic Security, their CEO. We're happy to have you again, Jerome, and thank you. And the famous, the infamous, our FutureCon's friend in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Jessica Hoffman, who worked for the City of Philadelphia, Deputy Chief Information Security Officer and HIPAA Security Officer, who's going to be our moderator for today's panel. Come on up, Jessica. Big round of applause. And with that, this hour is yours, Jessica. The mic is yours. The podium is yours. Enjoy our CISO and industry leader panel. It's all you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Pittsburgh. Come on, that's better. That was real weak applauses, okay? How many of y'all, this your first time here at FutureCon? Dang, welcome. So exciting. This is actually my 5th panel, and I got to keynote last year in Philly. Super dope. Shout out to Andrew, Fave, Kim, our AV dudes. They be running around making y'all sound good, look good. So thank you, Mike. Thanks, Lorenzo. Thanks, everybody, for being here. All our sponsors, all that shit. We appreciate you. Can I say that? Woo! Okay. So we got an awesome panel up here. Everybody's going to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves. But I got to say, we just met, and our whole theme for today is living on hope. Anybody else feel that way? You're living on hope. Okay. Well, how about we do some introductions, and then we're going to get excited. We're going to wake up. This is totally interactive, so if you have any questions along the way, raise your hand. Please don't talk. Okay, we have a microphone, and then you can talk. Say whatever you want. Open forum. No stupid questions. Unless they are stupid. We'll let you know if they are, privately. Oh, wait. The microphone's right there. Oh, okay, thank you. Are these for you? Oh, these are for you. Oh.
That's for him.
Oh, okay.
All the questions.
Wait, there's two of them. Here.
There's two of them.
Those are handy, right? All right, well, as mentioned, I'm Jessica Hoffman. I'm with the City of Philadelphia. Really excited to be here with you all. And we will continue on with...
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John O'Rourke. I am the CISO for PPG Industries. So we are a global coatings manufacturer, present in about 73 different countries around the world, over 200 locations around the world. Sorry about that.
Oh, yes. Intentional.
Yeah. Present about locations, about 200 and over 200 locations around the world. So for those of you that don't know, maybe everybody knows by now, we were a glass company. We were not a glass company anymore. We are a coatings company. So think of coating anything you see: planes, trains, automobiles, washing machines, and various other, I'll say, sealants and other, I guess, trinkets like that. So happy to be here, open to any questions along the way, and I'll pass it over to Steve.
Thank you, John. My name is Steve Rocco. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer and Head of IT at Matthews International. Matthews International is an interesting company. It's we're the number one manufacturing in death benefits. So we manufacture caskets, urns, mausoleums, all the the good part of life, I guess. Our motto is people are dying to do business with us, right? So it's a good one. But we're also, interestingly, we do industrial technologies, industrial automation. You wouldn't know this, but if you go to Home Depot and you buy lumber, and and that lumber has markings on them, we are the large print manufacturer, or the supplier of that print, right? So we print on large form products like wood and that too. And we're in the EV space. We developed intellectual property for EV manufacturing, for the battery. So it's a very dynamic company, conglomerate type company, heavy in acquisitions, so inherently insecure. So, and I've been there for about 3 years, and so it's quite interesting. Thank you.
Hello, Pittsburgh. Naomi Buckwalter with Contrast Security. We are an application security software company and ID security for a security company.
Thank you.
And Jerome Robert, I'm the CEO of Symbiotic Security, doing code security for developers. So in cybersecurity and launching a startup, so definitely living on hope, I guess.
Yes. So Naomi was kind enough to show me in the sponsor room, there was a board with the Post-it note, and it said, what is your biggest fear, basically, in cyber? Anybody write a Post-it note on there? What y'all say? What'd you say? Oh, that's a good one. You look very sus. In the back. Insider. Yes, I was waiting for that. Who else? Doge. I saw that. I think you inspired some people.
End users.
And what?
End users.
End users. Right here.
AI.
AI. Just playing. We're all scared of AI. Insider threat and people. Those are the first two I heard. Fantastic segue, because we were going to talk about that as part of our sesh. So let's talk about people. They suck, right? Yeah? Okay. So how do we make it less sucky? How do we make it so our organization not just takes our training once a year, right? Or, listens to a webinar or something, a Zoom call, and then does 50 million other things, right? How do we get people excited about security and really think yeah, I probably am not winning these Super Bowl tickets, okay? So let's talk about that. I know, Jerome, you talked about a little bit earlier this morning in one of your session about how to use the word that starts with A, ends in I, to help us like be more targeted with our training. So when we're thinking about insider threat and people sucking, what advice or what thoughts do you have on how we can do better?
I don't know. No, training is something I truly believe in, and AI, well, you heard me this morning. I think what I want to say just that, like as an opening, I think there's an opportunity actually with AI and training in the sense that I'm sure you've all experienced awareness training or secure code training or whatever, and it might be useful, it's mostly boring, and one of the reasons why it's boring is because it's not meant for you. It's a standard platform, it's meant for the masses. I'm sure you experience also the same kind of frustration with any kind of security product. They are meant for everyone, they are not meant for you. I think there's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that we, the industry, I think, should seize, in using coachable AI so that the product can adapt to you rather than the other way around, right? What about, you could say, well, in my context, here's the business, and in natural language, right? That's the power of it. Here's my context, here's my business priorities, what's different in my case, the kind of people I have, the job they do, the types of threat actor I have, so that you can coach the AI in such a way that when the AI provides the service to you, whether that's training on awareness, code security, which is obviously what we're doing, but also other fields, like when creating rules, identity, zero stuff, etc. Well, the product can adapt to you instead of the other way around. I think we're going to see that happen more and more in the next couple of years. I'm very excited about this.
I also think training is very valuable. However, how many think training is effective in their environment?
See, it's thumbs
Somewhat,
down.
right? It's very challenging. It is effective. I don't know how effective. I think people are burdened by training more than anything. And for my company, we do mandatory training, right? And it's quarterly. And if you don't take it, you lose your Office 365 access. So it's mandated. Now, they take the training, they can fast forward through the training, but they have to take the training, right? And I don't know how effective it is because our phishing assessments prove to me that it's somewhat effective, but it's flatlined, right? We can't get over a certain threshold with our phishing assessments, right? So it's very challenging, but our trainings are short. They're about 5 to 7 minutes, and they're around data governance, insider threats, those type of things. I think they do help cultivate a security culture, but it has to be engaging, and security awareness training is somewhat difficult to be engaging. But just my opinion, though.
Well, can we pivot for a moment to Naomi? So you said something earlier that, as far as targeted training or tailored training to individuals, you said something earlier about, let the developers develop, right? That's what they do. I do agree. Everybody needs to know security. Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. But let developers do their thing. Let them do what they're best at. So when you said that, what did you mean by that?
The year of our Lord, 2025, we will now start saying shift left has failed. We are okay to say that. Shift left has failed. I give you permission, I bless you all, to do application security in production. Woo! I'm serious. Our developers are great at making things and building stuff and releasing stuff. They are not so good at security, and I will tell you, our security teams are not so great at development. Embarrassingly enough.
Right. You're exactly right.
But there are better ways of doing this. I'm saying let's do detection and response in production where the behaviors are, the users are, the attacks are. Why not do protection in production? It makes sense. It makes sense.
Does it?
Yes.
Are those developers considered insider threats?
Not on purpose.
Any other thoughts on? Good segue to insider threats. But let's pivot from there to. Did anybody say threat intel? On the sticky. What else y'all have besides what we said? And we have anything that wasn't mentioned? How about this? What is your biggest concern as cyber professionals? Anybody? I'm smiling for the camera. Anybody? Come on. Yes, sir.
Am I allowed to answer without the mic?
Yeah, I'll repeat it for you. Oh, wait, here he's coming over. That's right. Thank you for following the rules.
My biggest concern is the ever-escalating cost of defense. And, you know, every time you turn around, there is a new product, a new solution, a new process or control that really does seem like it's appropriate. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not. It's just, as an organization, how do we keep up with constantly raising the expense burden of the organization in order to defend ourselves from nation states? I saw a tool this morning that you know, does something very, very advanced around DNS protection. I thought that looks fantastic, and I think to myself, why doesn't the government give this to their citizens? Their job is to defend the borders, and you know, we're under attack as a nonprofit leader in healthcare, just so you know. You know, it's getting harder and harder to appropriately secure critical infrastructure on our own dime. And so that's my big concern.
Did you say Doge too?
I didn't mention that, no.
You want to?
Well, and the you know, on top of that, right, probably a couple maybe answers along the way in what you said. The threats are constantly changing. You know, I think we've seen a massive evolution here maybe over the past couple of years of the way threats come at us. You know, I think we've seen, well, we still see supply chain attacks. You know, I think massively, probably a lot of our companies are moving to the cloud. You know, that has drastically shifted the defensive mechanisms that we have to defend against, but the solutions now we need to learn to figure out how to defend against. You know, one of my big fears is the constant proliferation of SaaS software that is out there. You know, we see this a lot where you can do a lot of integrations, you know, whether it's with SSO, whether it's with, you know, certain solutions to try to bake them into your logging platforms. But there's usually a backdoor sitting out there somewhere that we might or might not be aware of. So, you know, kind of going back to your beginning statement around how much is enough, right? I deal with this every day. I think Steve and I were sitting here talking about how many emails we get on the number of new solutions, the new vendors, the new processes, the new modules that come through our mailbox on a daily basis. I can't keep track of what WebDLP is, what CASB is, what SASE is. I mean, throw all of these verbiages together. You know, I think it takes a lot of investigation, conferences, discussions like this to really put the pieces together, and then you have one platform go by another, and I think the evolution starts all over again. Kind of going back to how much is enough, right? You know, this is a process I think I go through. You know, I go through a specific process, at least for my program, around, you know, I assess the program from a third-party perspective every 3 years. I do self-assessments every year, you know, really just trying to understand, okay, where are we? How much progress have we made? We review those with the board of directors. I go to the board of directors every 6 months. We talk through, hey, where our program is. Ultimately, you know, pointing out the risks along the way. Obviously, like I said before, those risks are changing based upon the threats that are out there. But really just trying to come to an agreement on, okay, how much, you know, risk appetite is that company going to have to defend the organization? We are a manufacturing company. We're not a bank. We're not, you know, a Google, a Microsoft. You know, that probably spends an infinite number of times more than we would. But we try to really understand to say, you know, where is our program? What are the biggest risks we have around the world? And then how much investment are we going to make in the next 3 years to get to a level that we think is appropriate? You know, I will say, and going back, I just finished one of my 3-year assessments a couple months ago. I like the progress, but you know, it's even kind of shifted a little bit in those 3 years in terms of, okay, now we're starting to infuse AI, we're infusing, you know, more cloud solutions. So there's not a good answer to it. I think you have to really, truly just understand where those risks are along the way and try to keep plugging the holes. You know, so I don't know if there's...
I don't know if that's going to be helpful, and I don't have really a how to stop this. But being a little cynical, I think the cost of being breached is just increasing significantly, and naturally that creates an aspiration on the market for new solution and new cost, even though we don't like, even me, I'm selling a software, but nobody likes new costs like this, but there's just like an opportunity somehow, right? I think the only way, and it's external to what you're doing, to what everyone's doing, I think the only way that those costs will actually stabilize will be when we reach a point, if that happens actually, but we reach a point where the cost of being breached will be stabilized as well.
I think for cost controls, it's essential to have your baseline controls and you invest in those controls and you be pragmatic in that sense. And so you have your non-negotiable control framework that has to be addressed through investments. And you got to pit several vendors against each other to get your optimal return on investment and cost structure. So, so the baseline controls, you map it out, invest in those, and that's how you can somewhat control expenses because you're not trying to boil the ocean. Each company is unique in their baseline control framework and where they assess those controls. And so, like I came from MSA Safety, I went to Matthews International, it's both a manufacturing type company, but quite frankly, the baseline controls were somewhat different, but very similar, but different. So we had to attack different areas and target investments in those. And so what we did too is a lot of vendors are, they do all the work for you. You buy our program and, press these buttons, it's going to work for you. Or you can work at it and configure some things and make them work and pay less money. What we did, for example, with SIM, I could have gone to Exabeam or Splunk, which are pricey endeavors. I brought Logarithm in-house, on-prem, provisioned the servers myself. Configured it myself with my team, and we saved a lot of money by doing that. And our company prefers the CapEx route. There's ways. So the idea is just you got to be smart and pragmatic in how you get investments into the fold. And then the other part of that is you have your risk register, and that risk register should be aligned to your risk framework as well. And then you should prioritize that risk mitigation. And so once you have all these costs aligned and you have several vendors compete against each other, you can make those judgments and what's best forward. So that's how I approach it.
If we could take a moment, two of our panelists have a flight to catch and we want them to get home safely. But now's your time does anybody, it doesn't have to be your most concerning, but does anybody have a concern with application security, DevSecOps? Does anybody care about that? Any developers in here? Tell us one thing very quickly. What's your concern? And Naomi knows everything she's going to answer. Yes.
Okay, so one thing that relatively something I'm playing with a little bit that I think it's more up and coming is, what do you think of secure code training? Because there's pockets of developers, obviously there's DevSecOps, you go through the CI/CD pipeline, but then you always have to first train someone to understand. So what's your interpretation or experience with that?
Shift left has failed. I'm sorry, Jerome. I love our developers, but they're not good at security. And they are going to go through the security training that we give them with gritted teeth, like we're stabbing them in the eyes with a hot fork. And it's always going to be like that, I really feel like. So in the year of our Lord 2025, I'm okay with saying shift left has failed. Secure code training will have a place, but don't make them do it, only if they want to do it. And at the other end of it, do security for them in production. I think it's time. I know that didn't answer your question. Here.
well, I'm not a dentist. I still brush my teeth. I do think training matters. I think the way, like, where I agree 100% with you, I think the way we do training right now just doesn't work, because training cannot be the priority of a developer, because a developer has something else to do, well, security training. And I would even say anything they do for the sake of security is basically harming their own KPIs for the benefits of the security team's KPI. No developer will really recognize themselves into this. So I don't think it's about we shouldn't do training. You understood, I'm a firm believer in training. We need to train them on the hygiene of cybersecurity, not being cybersecurity specialists, I agree. But we need to do it in such a way that it is not a pain for them. It is not lowering their velocity, which is their basic KPI. And hence what I mentioned in my talk earlier about just in time, about staying in the flow, etc. It may be not the perfect training in the sense that they will not be security experts, but that's not what we need from them, right?
All right, thank you, Jerome and Naomi, excuse me. They have to leave to catch their flight. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Everybody give a clap, clap. They were both speakers this morning as well. Safe travels. Thank you, thank you. All right, so what was our slogan when we first started? Anybody remember? What we say?
Hope.
What was our slogan when we first started? I said, what were we doing? Close. Living on hope. How many of y'all feel that way? How many think you're living on hope? Not you. It's like, I feel like more than that. Okay, it's fine. You don't got a minute. The young lady in the back, she looked like she got something to say. Hold on. You don't have one to say? Who wants to share why they feel like they're living on hope? How can we help you commiserate at the very least? You got two seasoned CISOs up here, manufacturer, did OT, IT. I remember Matthews. I bet you get some repeat customers, huh?
Well, I hope. Repeat families, but not.
I mean, it could buy an EV or EV battery, and then
Yeah, you never put those two together. But.
Yeah. Oh, come on. We're doing some, collaboration with the audience. Who feels you're living on hope? I mean, that's a real thing. I personally feel that too. It's not if, it's when, blah, blah, blah. We all know that, right? Every day is a new situation. I don't know about you guys, but it's a new adventure. Every day I go in the office.
I think, when I say hope, and it's jokingly, but, there's an obvious divide between cybersecurity operations and IT operations, unfortunately, right? And so as cybersecurity practitioners, you hope that, and I'm using that word, that IT operations is pressing the right buttons and they're configuring things correctly. The firewalls are set up correctly, and they're not giving external access into the management interface of the firewall, right, which we catch, right? So there's a very little lack of cybersecurity education on the IT operations side, which has caused, in my opinion, a huge divide and a huge conflict between the two. So you have end user computing, you have hosting with the server side, and you have network engineering, obviously with the routers and switches and firewalls. We depend on them to do their jobs correctly and that they do their due diligence on configurations. Unless we're auditing them, we don't know that that's the case. And we are not pressing those buttons. So a lot of times you're going to see a lot of technical debt in the configuration of their services. And those configurations come back to bite you. So when I say we hope that they're doing the right thing, it literally is hoping that they're configuring that firewall the correct way. When they have that weekend outage, that firewall is, the ACLs are being set up correctly, that they're not making any mistakes. And our hope is that our control framework and our auditing framework is catching those mistakes. And so, yes, there's a lot of hope in that everything is done correctly. And there's no panacea. And I think that's why we live on hope, to make sure that our IT operations are functioning in a secure way.
So I can add a little bit more to that, and I guess now that our application security people are gone.
Uh-oh.
I mentioned it earlier, and there is a little bit of hope and maybe areas that make me nervous, and it kind of goes back to all the SaaS software, all the third-party vendors that we rely on. We can, and we do a lot of this. We do our due diligence. When we bring software in, we ask all the right questions. We make sure they have a SOC 2. We make sure they're following the right frameworks. We try to scan their code. We try to look for the vulnerabilities in their code. And every day in the news, you see another piece of software that's out there that had a 0-day, had a vulnerability, had a piece of software, and it affected how many corporations and maybe the data. I don't want to go too into depth. I think one was, some of the data transfer software that has been out there that a lot of companies have been adversely affected, no matter how many controls, how many processes, how many things we put in place. I was at a talk a couple weeks ago at a law firm down here in Pittsburgh, and there was a guy who told a story. He had an IT consulting company, and one of the pieces of software they used was remote management software. That was our vulnerability in the software, ransomware across the whole supply chain, took down all of his customers. He almost lost his company. It was actually a very, very moving talk. I wish I knew the name off the top of my head. I would repeat it. It was actually might be on YouTube. If I think about it, I can share it. But it was actually a very moving talk. But if you think about those situations, whether you're a big global manufacturer and you're looking at you have 3,000 maybe minimum pieces of software that's out there that's used around the world. You have 70-some thousand endpoints. 5,000 servers, probably can go on and on. There's a lot of things we rely on. There are a lot of things we rely on to go right. There's a lot of things we rely on other people to make sure they go right. So, one of the things, and I'll kind of bring it into, third-party risk management is an area that I truly struggle because of all of these things that I'm talking about. We can investigate, we can review, we can ask the right questions, and bottom line, I could still be going to the board of directors and saying, hey, we had an issue. We're trying to do everything right. We had an issue. So, in our profession, in our world, you do have to trust the people. You do have to trust the software. You do have to trust the alerts. You do have to trust the program that you built and the program you constantly assess. But to a degree, there is a little bit of hope that's mixed in there, and it's hope on, the people that you're relying on to do the right things that might not be in your control. So, hopefully that helps.
Oh yeah, I get an example of that, and we were talking about this, and I'll divulge a little bit, but anyone familiar with Clio file transfer service, right? I don't know if you are or not, but it's a rather popular file transfer service that was attacked just recently, last 8 months or so. We happen to own that, right? And so that was, there were several 0 days attached to that service, which is a third-party service, but it's a third-party software, but it's hosted on infrastructure in our environment. It's externally available, right? So when you put something externally available, you should go through certain protocols, and you're hoping that your network operations team and your hosting operations team will follow suit with that, meaning least privilege principles, that kind of thing. So, that if that's servicing a customer, only those IPs should talk to that service, right? So you wouldn't be necessarily really consumed with the fear of that thing being attacked if the right defense and depth was put into place. So, so the Clio's has a 0-day attack coming out in the wild. Everyone's announcing it. We get all these alerts. Be careful. Clio 0 day. Clio 0 day is actively exploiting the wild. So we go out, we patch everything, right? We're there. We're right on it. The week before. The next week, we get hit with, on a Monday morning, 2:47 a.m., our dev server and our production server both get hit at the same timestamp with a 0-day attack onto our Clio environment and our DMZ, right? So they bypass our AV with a 0-day attack, with a fileless attack into the system, into our in the Clop ransomware gang is the adversary that is attacking those. So they're a really good ransomware gang. They're very good at what they do. So The good thing is that we had really good defense in depth in place, right? They did bypass our AV with this attack, which is a byproduct of that. And also, the operations team had any access into those servers, right? Even the dev server. So how do you win? Because we have a ton of things externally available. We had a good defense in depth. We had an IDS, IPS, right? So we had a SIM. When that was trying to do a C2 out to its IP, we were catching that and we were blocking it. And it was going to our SIM and we were being alerted about it. And then we immediately found that they had an intrusion on the system. We mitigated it right away. They tried to exfiltrate data, but we stopped them. But that's a good example about zero trust on your operations. You have to have good defense in depth methodologies and a good strategy to put forth against all these systems. Because if you hope they do it correctly, you're going to lose, is my point. And, network engineers are very good. I'm a former network engineer. EUC engineers are very good. I used to do that in my life too. Sometimes they don't do things correctly, and sometimes they take shortcuts. And sort of when you put a file sharing service out there that should be tied to a couple customers and not to any, you open yourself up to those attacks, right? And I think that's where the hope comes in, that people are doing the right thing. But you defend against that by having a good defense in depth plan, a good strategy in place to mitigate what you think IT operations might not do correctly from a security lens.
So I'm hearing there's different levels to hope.
There's a lot of different levels of hope.
There's hope when you have defense in depth and good security practices, zero trust, all that stuff, and you're like, I got all this, I do, all I can, but I hope there isn't a 0 day. I hope.
Yeah, and we were completely patched up until that new week, where a new 0 day came out, and we just happened to be one of the first, a small company like Maths International. No one knows who we are. That ransomware gang was able to attack 2 of our servers just by chance, with a new 0 day. So it's equal opportunity out there as well.
So at the bottom level of the hope is you don't got nothing together and you really hoping. Please don't know us. I'm Matthews, I'm small. Yeah, right. We know who you are. We do have a question out here in the audience, sir. Would you mind?
Yeah. So with the introduction of AI being embedded in every application coming out, like Adobe, Microsoft, everything, right? One, how are you leveraging AI from a security standpoint? And then how are you embracing AI in the rest of the platforms that are being rolled out, all the Office suites, co-pilots, everything that's being deployed in your organization? How are you guys handling AI?
Terribly.
No, go ahead. You want to start?
With some hope.
Yes.
Go ahead. You can take that if you want.
Yeah, no. So, I'll start. There's a couple areas, right? And you're exactly right. All of our security tools starting to embed AI. We're looking how we can more effectively use AI in security, maybe around, logs. Pick your vendor. It's out there. I think we are not using Microsoft Copilot yet. But that is something that we are definitely looking at. So I do see a lot of benefits on the security side in terms of making our security operations analysts quicker, aggregating threats, correlating threats across the board, maybe threat intelligence, gathering that information. They do a little bit of that ad hocly through a service that's out there. So I am hopeful on the security side. I do see a lot of benefits there. The use in the organization definitely concerns you. I don't see enough, concerns me, concerns probably everybody, I'm sure. I can speak for Steve too. I don't see enough right now around what we can do on the security side to maybe defend ourselves. I will kind of take a step back and say how we started when all of this kind of came the realm, I think when ChatGPT kind of started coming, was that 2 years ago? There you go. Yeah. Thanks, Steve. So we took the approach of, hey, we're going to block it in the organization at first. We are going to make sure and train the organization, again, doing the awareness campaigns. This is all new. People have to understand that, you can't take a strategy review document and throw it in a ChatGPT. You can't take, a board of directors document and throw it in ChatGPT. That's probably not secure, and it'll probably be used later on. So as we started training people, we started then giving the flexibility for the organization, for the people who wanted to, I'll just say, do some more exploring. Then we started bringing in the enterprise versions, whether it's through AWS or whether it's through Microsoft, the enterprise versions that is, keeping the data in our domain. So we do use that today. We call it actually Chat PPG. That is
Makes sense.
there you go. No doubt. We do use it today. It is available kind of on our homepage where all the employees can get to and safely, and we do press that. I am still very, very much concerned at the proliferation in every other tool that is out there. So and every day it continues to add on to whatever is out there. We continue to find more uses of it within China, within Asia Pacific, within Malaysia, within Europe. I mean, different than here in the US. We did specifically block, I think it was DeepSeek, flat out a couple weeks ago, actually, sorry, a couple months ago, whenever that first came out. Just too much variation around it, and that became true a couple weeks later, and it was a good thing we did that. So
I was wondering, is that all you blocked, or any other?
That's what I was going to ask. So you have your own, but are you blocking like Perplexity and Claude and other things, or how are you managing the other platforms that are out there?
Yeah, so that's part of the challenge we have right now, because we kind of started in the beginning and said, okay, if you take the training, we're going to give you the freedom to explore, but you have to be aware that your data can't go in there. We have some DLP enterprise rules, CASB rules that are in place to try to catch it going out the door. There is a big debate now that we have our own. Are we gonna physically block the rest of these? It's hard because we found out we try to categorize all those through network firewalls. As let's just say developers started using Copilot. The network controls recategorized all this AI and started blocking all these production systems that had AI built into it. So it's a little bit of a dancing, I'll say, through this to try to figure out what the right balance is. I'm still hoping and trying to figure out, okay, how do we gain better control over our data? I think that's maybe where we now need to start looking. Maybe better data classification, maybe better data controls around what data we want exposed and not exposed. Right. We had internally some LLMs turned on and started exposing data in 365 that didn't have the right security because somebody had a SharePoint site and they didn't put the right controls around it. That's going to happen, right? I mean, that's what we're all going to see across the organization because these are going to just start crawling out. So,
I would say, are you concerned about the small language models that are coming out? Because you have the large languages, now they have the small ones that are more defined to very specific things. And for someone like you, that may be unique and specific for your environment.
Yeah, we have developers, we have people that are starting to build these language models. We have people, yes. So we are definitely concerned. I'm talking with many vendors along the way to try to figure out, okay, we have governance controls in place. We have training in place. Now what are the, I'll say, physical controls that I need to put, the network controls, more network controls? Do I start blocking these sites, these softwares? That's kind of where I am. It's still, I'll say it's still very variable. I think, I'm going to go to Gartner Security and Risk next week. I have a fear I'm going to walk in and I'm going to see AI everything. And I'm not going to be able to differentiate between what all of these software platforms are doing. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't have the right answer to it, but I think in my mind, it's better data control over what's leaving the organization as of right now.
If I could add just a little bit too, it is part education as well. There's ramifications to sharing your data into those large language models, small language models. And the other thing that it gets lost on a lot of people is your current governance structure still is in place and enforced in the AI age, meaning you cannot upload intellectual property to a LLM. You can't do it. It's against policy. And there's ramifications against that. If we catch you, it could mean termination. That has, in our organization, that has been articulated across to everyone and through training as well. So that's a very important fact. The other part is, we have now an AI-specific policy governance structure, right? Which spells out, which ties all the other governance into one document about AI, right? And it brings everyone into that AI document, and it points to all of our other data, all the other governance structure that is pertinent to this subject matter. The other thing is, right, of course, just like what I talked about, you got to put controls in place, but the governance structure got to be first, but you got to put controls in place to help protect against, intellectual property theft, and that's a zero trust, that's a Zscaler type thing, not to mention vendors, but you know what I mean? Like those things are in place to help prevent from data loss. And they're getting smarter. And I think the other thing that is really key to on the offensive side, enabling the business is, accepting AI, right? And so, our motto at where I work is automation, orchestration, and visualization, right? And we're really embracing the idea of agentic AI into our daily workflows. And so we have the capability to automate across all of our different solutions to make our lives a lot easier and streamline our processes. At the same time, you're pulling in analytics from all these systems into one dashboard, and you're making sense of things. So you can make intelligent decisions on things. So in order to combat the adversarial side of AI, you're going to have to use some pretty powerful tools to work against it. And I think the idea of agentic AI, putting those tools together, orchestrating, automating, and visualizing everything will help combat that a little bit, but it's an uphill battle, though, to say the least.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
John. We do have a few more minutes if there's any other questions in the audience. What is somebody else's biggest concern in cybersecurity? Could say what keeps you up at night, but that's stupid. I hate it when people ask you. Yeah, people ask you that. What's a hacker's favorite season? Fishing. Yes, sir.
So you talked a little bit about control and trust and training and all those things. With a more hybrid and remote workforce that we have today, how are you implementing some of those controls for those users who are outside of your control, who are using BYOD and those types of things?
I'll start this one. So it's, with SentinelOne, or not SentinelOne, with your antivirus, right, you put a lot of controls in place of protecting your data, including USB protection as a simple one, right? And then you have your zero trust flavor, whatever it is, Netscope or Zscaler, where you have that 24/7 protection of your users, and that's the key. So when they leave on-prem and they go home and they do their work and they don't have a 24/7 protection that are supporting your control framework, you're going to lose. And so we talk about people putting stuff into AI tools, but for the longest time, people were uploading documents into their personal email, into their Dropbox. You got to put controls in place to block that, or they're going to do it. Your governance framework is in place, and they read it, but they don't care necessarily, or they're ignorant to that, or they don't remember what that government structure says. So you have to have a control in place to mitigate that risk. It has to be identified on your risk register, has to go to the board of directors and say, this is a critical risk. If we don't put this in place, you're going to lose data. And the impact of losing that data is incalculable, right? It could be the millions of dollars, it could be the tens of thousands of dollars, but it's incalculable right now. If you're going to lose your intellectual property if you don't control this is how people work. So you got to go with the zero trust. Unfortunately, it's another key word, right? You have to take that zero trust methodology into your antivirus. That's something that's on your system, your EDR, that's on your system all the times. And then you got to go with a zero trust solution that is continuously monitoring all the data leaving that computer, including web browsing, and you're protecting against that. And so to me, the zero trust strategy is really, really critical right now because the remote workforce is very prevalent and it's not going to change.
So maybe a little bit more detail what Steve said. We spent a lot of time over the past 2 or 3 years on insider threat and IP protection. So we had teams of people looking at, what are our crown jewel applications, what are our crown jewel data sets, and spending a lot of time doing, I'll say, application access analysis. So really starting to understand who is accessing those applications, making sure we have the right certifications, the people with the right access, but also really starting to analyze the behaviors of people within certain applications. So, we've had a couple, I'll say, key examples of, data downloads from certain applications, people getting access to maybe formulas where they shouldn't. And we've really just spent a lot of time trying to make sure those logs for those applications from around the world that we're going to be, I'll say, concerned about, that our IP are built into our SIM, are built into the alerting mechanisms that we have out there. I would say it definitely exemplified as we started to get into this work from home situation. There's always the concern of somebody at home using their cell phone, recording videos of stuff they are doing on their website. I would say we are also critical on what apps can be used from home now. There are several apps that we have now blocked from access from home.
Like what?
Various different, anything that is related to our R&D. So we utilize and block those applications now, or we will be blocking those applications. So those are that's what we would call the crown jewels of the company, in and around information that we want to ultimately protect. We're also being very sensitive to what contractors access those applications. So I think we've all seen those examples in the news of IT contractors, from North Korea that the FBI has warned us all about. We are being very sensitive to what contractors have access to what applications, and even getting to the point where, we allow them access, but we mask a lot of data coming back out of different systems and databases. So we are getting pretty particular. It's not easy, I will say. You're always, and this is our job in security, you're balancing productivity and security, right? And, even going back to the AI discussion, it's move faster, move faster, move faster, move faster, get more value out of program systems, data, products, right, that are out there. And we're just trying to be very sensitive to what is the longevity of the company, ultimately, which is our IP.
So, Steve, did you want 60 seconds to add on, or are you good?
Oh, good. That's good.
Okay. So we
perfect.
are at time, but we have a wealth of knowledge on this stage, like decades. You guys together, not me. I just started. But Steve, what's the biggest lesson you've learned across your career that you can share with the audience? Don't think too much.
The biggest lesson.
30 seconds.
Unfortunately, it's zero trust. It really is. I hate to use that slang word in IT and security, but the biggest lesson is, as soon as you start trusting someone as someone that can adhere to security controls and understand what we need to do as security practitioners, that's when you're going to make a mistake. It's just my opinion about that. I think it's constant reinforcement about what security means to the company and the survival of the company. And I think that's the biggest thing. Security is a very challenging discipline, and to think that people that are just in customer service or marketing understand aspects of security, we are very wrong. They don't understand, and they assume way too much. So our job is to take those assumptions away through controls, and so we can help mitigate that. So I would say, I've been trusted with people a lot of times that I think they know what they're doing, and I've been burned along the way. So I really am taking on a zero trust mentality on this.
So people are stupid, got it.
No, people are not stupid. They're ignorant.
So let me add into that a little bit. Similar, but I would say, and this is, maybe a little bit of career lesson, not just in security, but as you kind of build throughout your career, get out of into management, stuff like that. But no doubt, I have learned over the past 4 or 5 years in a CISO role that is needed, and it's building an effective team, building a trusted team, and someone that you can definitely rely on, and is going to make the right decision at the right time. If you don't have that, your stress level is going to be out the window. So, that is my big thing. I've constantly built a good team. I have built a team that I trust, that I know can make decisions. I can travel, around the world and visit our facilities to make sure that message of awareness is spread. But I know that the right decisions are being made when alerts and incidents are being detected. So.
Thank you, and that's what I would say too. Have a great team, and don't be afraid to hire out the box. I would challenge everybody to reevaluate your hiring processes, because we all don't need to look alike, work alike, be alike, whatever, right? Diversity is key, and people that you can trust. So thank you, John. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody. Let's give it up for our panelists. Thank you, Andrew. Stick around, there's some prizes. Ooh.